Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Opera 101 with Cleveland Opera Theater. My name is Dean Buck. I am the assistant conductor and chorus master for Cleveland Opera Theater. And today we are going to talk a little bit more about Giuseppe Verdi, as this is our Verdi month. As you've probably seen this week, we've been talking about the opera Aida. And so today I think we should talk a little bit about how Aida fits in to Verdi's catalog and the interesting place that it holds. We as musicians, for better or worse, tend to divide composers' catalogs into usually an early, a middle period, and a late period. Beethoven set the standard for this, as those are very easy to define. The difference is quite stark, so we just kind of translate that over to other composers. With Verdi, the start of his late period is usually considered to be Otello, but we'll take a look at that. By the time that Verdi wrote Aida, he was already the most famous composer, definitely in Italy, potentially in Europe. He was the most successful musician in the world, and Aida was intended by him to be his final opera. And if you look at it through that lens, it has a lot of the makings of a last great work of a great composer. It is, in a way, an amalgamation of all of the wonderful things that make Verdi's work, and also pushing forward a little bit. As you know, you look at the last pieces by composers like Beethoven or Mahler, they always tend to look forward and kind of depart slightly from what we associate with those composers. In Aida, we have, I think, an extreme amount of musical contrast that is just spellbinding. The Prelude, I think, Verdi finds a real new sense of subtlety in it. It's largely very soft. It's very short. And Verdi had written short preludes before, but if you look at something like Rigoletto or La Traviata, which are short preludes, they still feel almost overture-like. There is a large kind of breadth of emotion in them. They're very large, they're very assertive. Aida, you don't quite get that. He saves the big emotions for a lot of the scenes within the opera. Aida also features kind of the what people tend to call the quiet goodbye, which is it ends very softly and very subtly instead of something like Traviata, where you have the giant chord at the end. And Verdi tended to go for that sort of ending, but a very soft fade out into nothing is characteristic of that. In terms of the last composer work, we see the same sort of thing in Mahler's Ninth Symphony, as kind of what we call the quiet goodbye. Now, it was not until 1887 that Verdi premiered his next opera, Otello. Keep in mind, Verdi had written Aida in 1871, so that's 16 years without an opera, which for Verdi there was no other period in his life like that. He had thought that after Aida he would be finished. He would do as Rossini did, finish on a high note, live out life. This didn't work entirely well for him. He found that life without composing was not particularly happy for him. He did write his incredible Requiem during that time. It also didn't help that his publisher, Ricordi, was continuously bugging him because Ricordi wanted to make money, and he knew that Verdi was the best possibility to do that. When you look at Otello, you see and its successor, Falstaff, you see a very stark change from Verdi's middle period operas like Trovatore and Rigoletto. Harmonic language is extremely expanded. We'll spare any details, but if anyone's interested in in-depth discussions about harmony, please feel free to send us an email. But his harmonic language is far expanded, and the idea of a number opera tends to disappear. A number opera is essentially an opera that is split up into musical numbers. The pinnacle of this is like in a Mozart opera. You have a number, then you have recitativo, then another number, then recitativo. The numbers are arias, duets, ensembles, finali. Verdi already from the beginning was blurring the lines of the number opera, as there were no recitativi secchi or dry recitatives. It was always continuous, although it was very clear this is a number, this is transition. In Otello and Falstaff, this largely disappears. There are a few instances, but it is very continuous, it is very through composed, and if you listen to Aida with this in mind, you can absolutely hear him going that way. And you can hear this almost transition between mastering the idea of a number opera yet through composed to going to a completely through composed platform in his last two works. Just the structural components of these works are very different. It is worth noting that at the same time that in the same year that Aida was premiered, Verdi attended a performance of Wagner's Lohengrin. The stories are, there are a million stories about Verdi and Wagner and how much they couldn't stand each other's music. But like all things of this sort, I feel like you can hear influences of one in the other. And I do think it is not coincidental that after hearing Wagner, Verdi took such a strong departure from the number opera, from the harmony. And you could say the same thing about Wagner, even in a piece like Tristan und Isolde, which is so harmonically innovative, so away from the number opera. You can find very Verdian influences in there. You can find references to the types of forms. So as always, I find the two are not as far apart as they would like to think they are. Fun anecdote about what Verdi did kind of late in his life, and supposedly, according to story, used the money from Aida to do this. He started, which I think is one of the coolest things that a composer has done, which is the Casa Verdi in Milan, which is a retirement home for professional musicians. One has to apply, and it's complete with state-of-the-art instruments, pianos, stages, so retired musicians can live somewhere where they can still perform, still interact with their colleagues. It's still functioning today, and it is still functioning on the money that Verdi gave them. A super cool thing, and the only thing of its sort that I knew, and it was something that Verdi, late in his life, used his money to do. If anyone has any specific questions about how Aida, in more detail, transitioned further into these later, more adventurous operas of Otello and Falstaff, please feel free to reach out. We can definitely have an in-depth discussion about it. There's some really, really interesting things about it, both in structure, in form, in harmony, in vocal writing, but this just to serve as kind of an introduction that although it has all of the landmarks of a final piece, Aida is really this incredible transition piece into the true late operas of Otello and Falstaff. As always, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Be safe. Thank you.